Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Fantastic to join you today for this session all about what you need to do to overhaul your search engine optimization. It is no longer the old rules. They do not apply anymore. This is going to be a lot of fun. And I tell you, of all the sessions you could go to in the fourth quarter of 2022, I think this might very well be the most useful one. I'm Jay Baer, founder of Convince and Convert, but the star of today's show is Jenna Watson. She's a senior vice president of digital media at DAC Group. She has forgotten more than I will ever know about SEO. But this is going to be a rollicking good time. And I tell you what, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to have questions, you're going to have queries, you're going to have ideas, you're going to have confusion, you're going to have fear as part of this session. And that's okay. We intended it that way. Please, please, please feel free to ask questions in the Q&A panel or the chat. This is your opportunity to hear it straight from Jenna. Obviously, you'll have the opportunity to contact Jenna and her team at DAC after today's session. But if you've got a question, don't hold it. Fire away. We'll answer as many as we can during today's session. Jenna, are you ready?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Let's make it happen. I'm ready to blow some people's minds.
Blowing minds. I love it. All right. So let's just start with a big sentence that people are probably going to be like, yes, or people might be absolutely. Let's find out.
Okay.
SEO has changed a lot is our premise of this webinar today. And what we're going to talk about is where we find ourselves in 2022 as marketers who have come to rely on, love, and adore SEO, and who might be feeling a little bit funny about it right now. So we're going to start off actually with a poll. So poll question number 1. You should see this on your screen and you should be able to respond to this. But those of you in attendance, have you seen a decline in your SEO performance this year as compared to last year? I'll give you some time to yes, no that one.
And by performance, we mean sort of accumulated traffic, presumably from search.
Right, traffic from search or contribution from search. Yep.
Okay. So it looks like everybody should have the poll now. Luckily, you only have 2 choices, yes or no. We've tried to keep it as simple as for you as possible. Yes or no. Of course, this assumes that you are tracking your performance, which we hope that you are. If you're not, there's a good place to start.
That would be a good one.
All right, that's probably enough time. Let's see what the results are, shall we? Please.
Do it.
Results. I do need a drum roll machine. I probably have one here in my studio somewhere, but I just don't have it. I don't have it handy. So we'll pull up the results here. Which is not a button that I can click. I'm waiting for elves to do that.
Dear elves.
Metaphoric elves. 2/3 of our audience here today, 66%, have in fact experienced a decline in their SEO performance. 2 out of 3. The other 1 in 3 are very, very lucky, and we're sorry to say you may in fact experience a decline. And we'll find out in just a moment. All right, back to the presentation. Thank you, friends.
All right, let's do it. And are we still seeing the screen again now?
All good there? We are cooking with gas. All good.
So, my dear 66%, as Jay said, you are not alone. You lucky duck 33%. Hold on to your hats, maybe. It's not a guarantee, but we'll go through this and we'll tell you what's happening from our perspective. And as mentioned by Jay, feel free to ask questions as we move along. So, I mentioned earlier that SEO has changed a lot. In our perspective, there are 3 main factors that are impacting SEO. So when we say SERP, just to set the stage here, SERP means search engine results page, which is simply the page that appears when you do a query on Google or another search engine. So the 3 factors, and we're going to take you through some examples of each of these, are the increasing visualization of the SERP, the zero-clickification, which is a made-up word that I love a lot, of the SERP, and the monetization of the SERP as well. So let's go through the first one with the visualization. So when we're thinking about this, just putting yourself in the mind of a consumer, we know that people are consuming visual content more than ever. So this big headline from the end of last year, TikTok surpasses Google and Facebook as the world's most popular web domain. That has everybody up in arms saying, I need a TikTok search strategy. Now, yes, it got more users, more traffic. That does not mean that people are using TikTok as a search engine more than they are using Google as a search engine. It simply means that's where people are spending their time. So if that's where people are spending their time, that means they're getting used to seeing and receiving and ingesting content in short form video. So it's a changing user behavior. So no surprise then that when marketers are polled, the top two types of content that they're producing to reach their goals are video and images. And, you know, I think we have a friend here who's pretty adept at this whole video thing. And I think, you know, it's not just brands, but we know from people like Tequila Jay, not regular Jay Bear, but Tequila Jay, his alter ego, can attest to the success of that.
I mean, look, I was a journalism major originally. I've written 6 best-selling books, but where I have the most success now is videos that are under 90 seconds.
Yep.
I've got a tequila account on TikTok as well as on Instagram. I am the 2nd most popular non-celebrity tequila influencer in the world now. I always have tequila available just off camera. As you can see here, this is a new brand called Auténtico, which I'm working on. So yeah, and it's a little dismaying for somebody who's written, you know, I don't know, 2,000 blog posts and 6 full books. It's a little dismaying that I can only communicate in 88-second bursts now. But look, if you can't beat them, join them, right? So the reality is that visual content is the norm now, and there's a couple of reasons for that. Some is demographic, of course. Younger consumers and citizens sort of grew up with video, so they're just more comfortable with it. And certainly there's some technology advantages. You think about the fact that we can stream high speed to a phone in most places in the world, like we take that for granted now. But you know, when I was in college, I had a typewriter, like legit a typewriter, not a computer, like clickety clackety clickety, right? So
I went to the computer lab because I didn't have my own. So
so now it's like, oh, I can watch video full speed, you know, from any public restroom. So it's we are able to consume video now, which is one of the reasons why we do.
Oh, that's right. That's absolutely it. So, you know, if you can't beat them, join them. You know, poor Jay and his 6 books and his bajillion blog posts, people are only going to read about 28% of the words that you put out there if they are, you know, if it's text content. So better get your good stuff in the first 28%. But, you know, if you can't beat them, join them is the moral of this story. So these are just some screenshots from this year's Google Marketing Live conference, which was back in May. And if any of you attended or watched the Search On content, which happened in September, you can see it's just an expansion of this. But our friends at Google absolutely understand this trend. They're always paying attention to user behavior, and everything that they're putting out is all about the increased visualization of their experiences, right? They're for visualization, immersive experiences, and video and imagery everywhere. So as a result, the SERP, there's our favorite acronym, the SERP, has changed. So we went to the Wayback Machine and did a query for shoes from 2 years ago, November of 2020. And this is a top and bottom of the page 1 SERP of what it looked like when you searched for shoes back in November of 2020. You will see that there are some shopping ads over on the right-hand rail, but other than that, it's organic, some images, organic, a whole rest of the page is organic, right?
It's also interesting that Google seems to only favor black shoes if you do a top of the funnel.
Yes, well, at that time, or some brown if you were shopping.
I'm not sure what that means, but you know, look, 2 years ago is not that long ago in the big scheme of things. And now show them what it looks like now, Jenna.
Boom. That is only a year and a half later from that.
What happened to all the words?
Where'd they go?
Have been removed.
They are so gone. We see our shopping ads, our friendly shopping ads in the top rail, or not even rail, in the top now. Interestingly, we've got a maps pack showing up. I didn't search for shoe stores, I searched for shoes, but Google knows my intent. Google's natural language processing is very smart, and so it decided that a map pack is the next best result. Then we do have some organic in there, but just look at them, would you? Right? Where is all the text, Jay? It is full of images, and you can see that these images are getting pulled in a multitude of ways. So everything following this is not an ad. Everything following that maps pack is organic, but look how full of imagery it is and all the different types of units on the SERP that it could appear in a visual format. A lot different. So looking at that, when we used to think of SEO, you would think a headline and some text, right? That's what it was. That's what we all grew up to love.
Be super smart about that first sentence of copy and really good about your H1s and because they're going to pull it in automatically. And that's all still true. but now look, they're just grabbing whatever images are available. So, you really need to be thoughtful about what those images are on your page, because if your images aren't great, even on a page that's manifestly text-based, it could look pretty squirrely in the SERP.
It can indeed. So image optimization is a good idea, has always been a good idea for size and making the site work quickly, but now it's important for visual appeal and getting people to click through from the SERP as well. So actually, the query on the left, we see some paid mixed with organic, and we're used to that. The query on the right, there's not a single paid ad on there. But if you look at it, they all have images and one has a video, right? So it is not the same SERP you've grown to love and understand how to use from a marketing perspective, right? So again, it's not just for brands. Look what happens when you search for our friend Jay, not his alter ego Tequila Jay, but regular Jay. So this is what happens to him.
It's a bunch of pics, it's a bunch of photos and book covers and then tweets, but they pull in the tweets with graphics more often than not. Yeah, it's a lot of visuals. Got to make sure you're keeping track of your headshots out there.
Yeah, that's right. Make sure you like all this. Yeah,
right.
So, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the increased visualization of the SERP. Again, if you have questions, put them in the chat. We'll get around to those. I'm going to move on to the next factor that's impacting search, and that is the zero clickification of the SERP, which is my new favorite made-up word. So this is one study. You'll see varying numbers on this, but this is a fairly recent study that says, approximately 65% of queries on Google end up in a zero click. That means simply the person got their answer without clicking through to your website. So that is because of things like you can get these, the people also ask the answer box. You can get these things like we saw in the shoe query where it's just surfacing brands for you right there without you asking that. There are lots of different types of ad units where you can, or excuse me, not even ad units, organic units, where you can get the information you need without ever clicking through to the website supporting it. And that is especially important when we think about businesses that have a location, a physical location, or a service area, or even if you're selling shoes, apparently, because I got a Maps ad, or a Maps pack when I search for shoes. But you can learn pretty much anything you need to learn through a well-optimized Maps listing. So it might have the hours, the location, the products that are available. If it's a restaurant, it could have the menu on there. You can get all of this. You can get questions answered. You can see FAQs. You don't ever actually have to go navigating a website to get most of the basic answers that you need. Talk about zero clickification, right?
Which is interesting, right? Because Google makes their money when they send traffic to websites, but yet strategically, they are trying to keep all the traffic on Google, or more of the traffic on Google than used to be. And we'll talk about why that's so in just a little bit.
We will. And I do think it's an important reminder, or actually an original thought for some of us. We marketers have thought, SEO is free traffic to my website from Google. That has never been anywhere in Google's mission statement to send traffic to websites, right? Google is there to catalog the world's information and serve up the best answer to a user. So we need to kind of get over the idea that Google's mission or value is sending traffic to websites, when really it is there to surface the right answer, right? So we saw with shoes that the Maps pack is getting served up on a lot of these queries. This is one for mattress. So we know at DAC, we run a local listings management as part of our offering. And so we know that the impressions for these maps are way, way up. They were up 47% year over year. And that's not due to change in optimization or anything. That's just surfacing that much more often. And clicks are up as well, but it is not at the same level that the impressions are. So are these maps stealing your SEO traffic, or is the user getting what they need right there from your maps listing? It's worth a thought.
And for some businesses, that's okay, right? For some businesses, especially those who have more retail based revenue streams, the map delivering what the consumer needs is actually fine. But Absolutely. If you're an e-commerce business or somebody who's trying to be more of an e-commerce business, you're like, well, wait a second. Yeah. Now they don't come to the website anymore because they get what they need right here.
Yep, absolutely. And Jay, you had a good point. Google makes their money by getting people to click on ads. Yes, indeed they do. The third factor impacting search SEO today is the increased monetization of the SERP. So, it's harder than ever according to Jay and myself and 66% of you attendees, it is harder than ever to get that air quotes free SEO traffic as Google continues to monetize the SERP. So let's start over on the right. That's an easy one. That's a desktop query, women's shorts. You get the shopping ads, you get the paid ads, then there is an organic listing, one above the fold, has images in it. Note where position 1 is there. But in mobile, it's even harder than ever before. So queries women's dresses and men's pants, you'll get your one ad. So you'll see that result, and then you have to scroll. You'll have to scroll through many ads before you get to organic. But worse yet, not worse for a user, worse for a person that wants SEO traffic, you have the ability to go through faceted selection now, right? So in the olden days, if I were going to a party and I needed a dress, I would search perhaps women's dresses. I would click through on a website that offered women's dresses, and then I would go navigate to the cocktail party dress section. And I would go through and be like, oh no, I need a black cocktail dress. You can do all of that right now on the SERP itself. So, you know, we used to get these traffics, we would get time on site, we would get, you know, page views within that visit. A lot of that is happening right on the SERP today. And that's helpful when the result that comes up continues to be an ad. Helpful to you, probably helpful to Google, certainly, right?
Yeah, and if you're in that top mid funnel, right, and you're going to search something that's fairly broad, like women's dresses, or even you know, women's gowns or party gowns, etc., it is useful from a consumer standpoint for Google to say, well, here's a bunch of them from a bunch of different purveyors, and here's a little image, and so you can get a sense of whether it's nice or not, and here's the price and reviews. You're like, wow, you just saved me a whole bunch of time.
Exactly.
This also I think points out why it is so incredibly important to not focus entirely on search at the exclusion of brand, because the way you solve for this is for somebody to type in bonobos pants, right? And now they're looking for you, not for pants, but they're looking for your pants, right? And so the more you can train your customers to be brand loyal and to prefer yours, it sort of disintermediates this essentially card catalog approach to product selection.
That's it. Card catalog. It's interesting that you said card catalog, because back in the good old days, that's really, it was a digital card catalog, right? Yep. You get your title and you get your description, and that's what you got. And now we have the card catalog plus for sure.
Absolutely. You know, and back, like having a librarian with you.
Yeah, all the time. A very, very fast, smart one. You know, so why is Google increasingly monetizing their SERP? Well, that's, now that I say it out loud, that's a dumb question, right? Google has to keep growing. Google's ad revenue is growing, will grow, no end in sight of that. But obviously, you know, if you go ask somebody at Google, I'm sure their answer would be, we simply want to get the best response to the query for the user. And they do a really good job of it. It just so happens that oftentimes that best result happens to be a paid unit. And you can see this reflected in their growing revenue year on year.
Yeah, and as a very widely held public company, they have to keep growing, right? The value of Google or Alphabet largely stock versus actual revenue and profit is a pretty high multiple. So growth is non-optional. And I think we've seen even this week what happens in the tech business, in the media business, when you don't grow. By any measure, Meta is still a very successful company. It's just not as successful as it was. That costs you 70% of your valuation and 11,000 people's jobs. So Google has to keep growing. There just is no other option for them. And so they've got to find a way to put more ads in more places.
Yep, and that's really interesting. You're absolutely right. Facebook is still a behemoth, right? It still performs very well for a lot of marketers, not as well. So yeah, absolutely, good point. You know, and as I kind of alluded to, these visual ad units perform really well, but they are going to increase your cost, and they are taking up more and more space that used to be reserved for free SEO. So we have a tiny case study here where we switched a client from regular shopping ads when we inherited them, when we won their business. We switched them onto Smart Shopping, which is now part of Performance Max, and we were able to increase the return on ad spend by 161%. So that is just one of those new types of shopping ad monetization pieces that works really, really well. And so as a marketer that has a revenue goal or a lead gen goal or something of that ilk, you are going to use whatever tactic you have at your disposal to meet those goals. And well, Google has made them perform really, really well. So well done, I guess, Google. But all of this makes it really difficult to keep up those year-over-year SEO results. And we say especially for e-commerce brands, but we also know that as goes one industry, so eventually go them all, right? Google tends to roll out its changes industry by industry by industry, and e-commerce is often a good test bed for these sorts of things. So very busy slide. Let me try to clear this for you a little bit. What we're looking at is some of DAC's clients' aggregated results by industry, and let's just focus on the top line here. So for e-commerce brands under our purview for SEO, really all an SEO person or team can do, if they're doing everything right, really the end goal is to simply increase your average position. There's not that much else that can be done on a broad scale by SEO except to get higher up in the SERP so that more people see it and click through. However, even when you do everything right and you do improve average position, your impressions are likely not going to be there anymore because of all those spots that are now taken up by other sorts of listings. And worse yet, to a marketer who relies on SEO, the click-through on those are even way down. Why is that? Because they can get the answer through a different type of listing on that SERP.
Yep.
Now, what's interesting is that that's e-commerce very obvious. You do the good thing and bad things happen. Even when you don't necessarily achieve the good things, sometimes you're getting more impressions. Sometimes you're getting more clicks, but fewer impressions. And so the moral of the story on this slide is, A, watch the e-commerce trend, because as goes e-com, eventually goes all industries. But note that there is no longer a correlation between doing SEO really well and getting really great SEO traffic. Scary.
Disappointing.
People don't like that. But it is. It really is. So all that to say, the good old days are over, unfortunately. I am well, Jay and I already talked. He had a typewriter and I went to the computer lab, so you can guess approximately how old we are. But I have been fortunate enough to work in this industry since this was brand new. And really all you had to do back in the day, up until the mid 2010s, was really just do your keyword research, see where you were ranking, put those keywords into your page elements, and then measure how well you're ranking, and everything flowed beautifully from there, right? It was fun. It wasn't easy. It was never easy, but it was a lot of fun. And there was a lot more kind of cause and effect that you could measure. Not so anymore today. So today, to keep your search afloat, you really have to have all of these things. So at the bottom, under the water, you still need your technical and UX excellence, right? You can make all the beautiful video and imagery content that you want to, but if Google cannot successfully navigate your site, if the UX is poor and people bounce, if it takes forever for your site to load, none of the stuff that floats above that is going to matter in the slightest. Then we think about what type of content do I need to make for my audience? How do I interlink all of that together? Should this answer be in video, in image, in text? And then thinking toward the very immediate future, how do we even go beyond that? How do we answer all of the places that could show up on a SERP for our user? And then considering, is the SERP actually a voice search through Alexa? Is there an interactive experience that we might be able to answer a question for a user? And those things feel far away, especially like AR and VR. But in the Search On presentation by Google, they were showing 360 3D views of products. It's not far away, right? They're giving you the heads up right now that things like immersive activities and AR and VR are going to be things that they're going to be looking at in the future. So again, start from the bottom, make sure your ship floats, then do the things and move upward into the higher decks, but you certainly still have to do the basics for sure.
Good question here from Katie about image content. She works in healthcare, and in some of their pages on the website, they've got testimonials from real people, patients, caregivers, etc. But they may not have rights to some of those, and so in some cases they use stock photography. And so her question is that okay, or does that have a negative SEO connotation?
Stock photography won't have a negative connotation, but it likely won't do you as much good. And why is that? That's because John Q. Smith, who has a blog that's kind of related, might use the same image. 58 other million sites of various sizes and functionality might use the same image. So it is not something that will uniquely answer the question in a way that would make a user, a searcher, go, oh, okay, I understand by looking at that, that's the answer. Now, it's not going to hurt you, but it's unlikely to add any extra SEO value.
Yeah, Google knows that image has been used. One thing to think about, just as it may or may not help, but always change the file name. So whatever the stock photo image file name is that you download, change that to fit your own conditions, and use your alt image tags and be descriptive about those. That will help a little bit.
See, you still got to do the basics. You got to use your alt image tags. That's absolutely right. Good question. Thank you. All right. So we've just spent, I don't know, half an hour scaring you. Apologies.
It's going to be fine. Don't worry. It's going to be fine.
You guys. Everything's fine.
The second half is much more positive.
Yes. Now, so what do we do about it, right? That's probably what most of you are thinking. Fine, I understand. Now what? So step one, we already talked about this. You have to have your ship in good working order. It has to stay afloat. So that means addressing all technical and UX shortcomings. So what you're seeing in this screenshot is actually highlighted core web vitals. That became a major algorithm ranking factor by Google. They came out and said core web vitals do matter. And so when you look at those are things like load time, interactivity, like is the page able to be interacted with before it's fully loaded, and then the stability, does it shift? So these are things that most SEO people think about all the time. Most marketers who aren't SEO people don't think about almost at all. But this is just telling you that bottom of the ship, the stuff that's underwater, is still critically important. In fact, maybe even more so than it ever has been before. So those are definitely signals for ranking. So how do you do that? How do you know if it's working? How do you know if it's broken? How do you know what you need to fix? You need to have somebody perform an audit of your tech and your UX. So the way we do it at DAC is we go through a multi-point checklist. We look at all the different factors, and then we're going to rate those and tell you, A, what's their impact on SEO, where are you currently, and what we believe your level of effort is. Obviously, you would know level of effort slightly better than we would, but this helps you get a priority list so that you can address things and check them off based on how much they're going to help you from an SEO perspective.
Yes, and in some cases, and I've worked with DAC for these kind of audits, it's useful to be thinking about the sequence of this too, right? So some things are precursors to other things, and so if we're going to fix 7 things, we should fix this one first and this one fourth because they interoperate, etc. So it sometimes can be daunting to say, we've got this long to-do list, but when you look at it from a priority standpoint and also from what's the logical first step, it makes it a lot easier to execute.
Absolutely. Yep. Great point. Thanks, Jay. So step 2 is really knowing your audiences. So most brands have some sort of persona work or segmentation, but how much is that actually telling you about your customers? We would argue that your data that you have in your own CRM system or your CDP can and should actually be used to really round out your personas. Take all this information from the third-party sites, take all of that, understand who they are based on what these research sites will tell you, but then mash that up with your own customer data because really, really interesting things will appear. So for example, we worked with a retailer a couple of years ago, and one of the first things we did with them was make data-led personas. They knew in their heart of hearts that one of their personas was for 18 to 24-year-olds. And I said, because I am who I am, I said, that's interesting because I buy that brand all the time. I'm not 18 to 24, would that I were. And they're like, yeah, but you're an outlier. Interestingly enough, when we went and we added their own customer data to that, we actually found that it was the next generation up that was more often buying against those types of products and not the younger one that they knew up, down, and sideways was correct. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with traditional personas or segmentation work, but I would argue that using your own first-party data will get you even closer to who those audiences are and what they need from you.
I could do a whole session on this. I have such a passion for that topic. Yep. Look, I've been in marketing for 30 years, and the overwhelming majority of personas were made with all the marketers in a conference room having pizza, right? And it's like, look, well, let's just go, and as my good buddy Tom Webster always says, the plural of anecdote is not data. and you've got to
I
use
like that.
real data in your personas, because otherwise you're just hoping that you're right, and you
Yeah,
might be,
you
but you
might be.
might not be. And this is also the reason why you've got to test things in your digital and sometimes analog marketing. Like, look, you've got lots of people who are very effective and successful graphic designers, and they've been trained to know what looks good. And then you actually do a creative test and do like 6 different ads, and the one that looks like crap almost always outperforms the one that looks great. It's just true. Trust me on this, right? So sometimes your instinct is not as well honed as you think it is, and you've got to make sure you pull real data into these personas.
Absolutely. Yep. So, when we do this, the way we continue to stay in that audience mindset is to kind of act like the search engines act. So search engines put your intent into the mix, right? Natural language processing is intent. Because if I type shoes and Jay type shoes and my brother in Hawaii type shoes, back in the day, we would have all got roughly the same SERP. Today, the 3 of us are getting completely different SERP layouts based on what we've searched before. Did we type shoe or shoes? So it's looking at things in combination to really get at the intent of what we are asking. And that's how we think about it for all of our planning, our content and our media planning both, right? Instead of awareness, consideration, conversion, and retention, we think about it as thinking, planning, doing, and feeling, because these are active human verbs. And when you're thinking about it from an active human standpoint, you're going to remember to put yourself back into that data-led persona's shoes and think about the type of content that they need to answer their question at that stage, right? That's what Google's trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. So once you're able to do that, then you can go into comms planning, content strategies and comms plans, right? If you know all of this, you've layered on your own data, you've put yourself in the user's mindset, then you can get full-on customer journey mapping and communications plans that will take you through every media channel that you use, through blog and site content, through email content, anywhere that is an important touch point for your audiences. You can map that out based on this information. And then that can also get translated back into creative through something like a brand key, for example. So all of this stuff that you know, that you have learned, that you got your data tied into your audience segmentation information, then you can take that, and to Jay's point, feed it back up into the creative and run tests against that. Because again, it might be a video that works the best for a specific type of query. It might be an image. It still might be a long form blog. It really depends on the thing that's being answered and your audience. And so you have to run this up the flagpole through to the creative and test it out to understand that. So all that said, you have to make the content that people want. So what does that mean? How do you find out what they want? Well, a good place to start is to look at a reporting suite that will show you the most likely types of SERP content to appear for the themes that you're trying to rank for. This happens to be for a type of running shoe brand. And you can see that for their major themes, 61% of the time, a video is going to show up in that SERP. 42% of the time, an image is going to show up. Oddly enough, only 49% of the time are shopping ads going to show up. Why is that? Because people need a lot more content. They might want, how to get back into running. What is a good time for a marathon pace? All of these things, Google will reward a brand by having the answers to the entire theme. It's no longer enough to say, I want to rank for women's running shoe as a keyword. To rank for women's running shoe, you have to answer all of the questions that would be surrounding that and think about the entire theme and the type of content that will be most likely to pay that off.
Let me ask a question from Jennifer. I'm going to change Jennifer's question just slightly.
Okay.
What if you are in sort of an enterprise services type company or B2B where you just don't have a lot of products, or at least products that don't really have pictures of them? What do you do in that case? Well, not unlike your own company, Jenna.
Yeah.
What do you do? How do you visually play this game if you don't really sell anything other than what's between your ears?
The cool thing about that is that Google knows that, right? Google knows that it's very hard to explain enterprise level B2B SaaS for, I don't know, whatever, problem that your product solves, right? It knows the types of queries people are asking about that, and it knows based on people's past history and what they clicked through and what they spent time on, what types of content is answering their questions. You might not have to make very many images, but I bet you do well to make a lot of videos, right?
Mm-hmm.
If your business is complicated, which a lot of B2B businesses have a lot of nuance to them, think about what types of questions could a really nice video answer for a user, and maybe then a video gets pulled into there. So again, something like if I'm selling clothes, pictures of clothes, people need to see that. People probably don't need to see a picture of your software or your stack or whatever your service that you're selling, but they still need answers. So if you use that thinking, planning, doing, feeling framework and think of what types of questions they'll have at each stage, then you can think, oh, okay, should that be a video? Should that be a series of FAQs? Should that be a really long blog post? How will people actually respond to this? So don't force images if images don't answer the questions for your particular brand, A. B, go look and see what types of content people are most often interacting with on your own site, and that's already an answer for you right there. And that'll help you understand, actually, they really engaged with this set of videos over here. I need to make more like this, for example. But also know that Google is now super intelligent, always has been, but now more than ever, and it's not going to try to force you to have an image result if that's not the right answer.
Okay. Love it. And making a video doesn't have to be a Hollywood film production, right? You can, if you're going to take a picture, make a 10-second video. Now you have a video, and then just pull a still frame out of it for your picture. It's way more efficient that way.
Completely unrelated, but every time I talk about this topic with people, they're like, but TikTok though. So the problem with TikTok is that people try to over produce it. Yep. And in this case, I would say you don't have to overproduce this either. People just want the answer and they want it to be credible. So let's say you have an expert in whatever the topic is working internally at your business. Get them to make that video, have them be credible because they're experts in their field, and answer the question through video format. Great call, Jay. Okay. So that, again, this is, timely question. The answer is what types of content? It depends. It depends on your business, and it depends on your audience and the types of questions that they will have. Ratings and reviews are critical for service industry, for restaurants, but also for a lot of, e-commerce retailers. It's very important. Long form content might really be the right answer for a very involved decision journey, right? You might be selling something that's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and people might have a whole lot of questions that they need answered, and it's going to be a much longer journey. Perhaps copy is the right answer there. So it's really dependent on, what people are engaging with and what types of questions they have.
Here's a good question from Caroline. We talked earlier about the fact that it's not as simple as trying to rank for women's shoes, and that sort of old school keyword or search phrase oriented connection in content doesn't really work anymore. You kind of have to find the whole topic. So Caroline asks, well, how do we as a service-based business, how do we know what things people want to know? Like, how do we know what questions they're asking? What tools are best to use now? Is it still Google keyword tool or something, or is there some other kind of magic tool that tells you what the questions are?
Oh, if only there was a magic tool. No, there's no magic tool. Yeah, sure. Google Search Trends Keyword Planner is still a great source of information for you. I assume your website has an internal search function, right? Like an internal search bar on that. Go get those log files and see what people are searching for. That's a great answer to your question. And then also, it's really, if you have a social listening platform. So if you have audiences that are active on, let's say, a Twitter or a Facebook or anything like that, you can go get words and actual phrases and sentiment from social listening as well. But take what data you already own. There's a lot on there. And even that internal search functionality can tell you a lot about what people are looking for and what they need.
It's also good to talk to anybody you might have in customer service, sales, or account management, and say, hey, we're going to have a company-wide exercise, and everybody is assigned the same task. Write down the 50 questions they hear most from customers. collate those together, and there's your list. Create content about that. Quick video question while we were talking about it from Martha. This is a good one. How do you add videos without slowing the site down? So we talked about the site having to be fast. That's a core piece of the story now. But now we're saying add video. How does that work? Should we put it on YouTube and then just embed the link on the website? Like, what's the play there?
Well, folks, we're going to have to burn this tape after I say this out loud. But you might notice when you see a video in the SERP, it is almost always a YouTube video.
Shocking.
Owned by Alphabet/Google. So yes, host that on Google, embed it via the YouTube share link. Easy, cheesy. A lot of times though, people have other platforms. There are ways that you can do things, and I'm not nearly technical enough to say this the right way, so apologies to people who know what they're actually talking about. But you can do lazy loading. You can have things load so that it doesn't negatively impact the full load time of the page, and then the video can come up as it gets scrolled to, etc. Ask your technical SEO experts about that. But the quick and easy way is to put that up on YouTube, optimize your YouTube channel, optimize your YouTube videos, and then embed the YouTube link. Yep. Great question. So, SEO, people have long thought that you could game the system a little bit by making experiences for the search engines. This was especially true because you actually could. You totally could game the system back in the day. You definitely cannot anymore. And so this idea that if people don't like your content, Google will hate it, it's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's not that far off, because this most recent algorithm update back in August was called the Helpful Content Update. And they said right there, you better satisfy the users that come to read this content, or it's no good to us. So remember that always, right? It's always been content for people first, content for engines second. Now I would simply argue it's content for people, full stop. Google is kind of a people, right? With their natural language processing and how smart it is. Do not try to make content for SEO. Make content that's going to answer people's questions, and you'll be in a great spot.
Yeah, and I'm going to use that as a jumping off point to answer Sarah's question. She said they've got two types of videos in her company, sort of talking head videos, and then almost like animated, hand-drawn, kind of illustrated how-to videos, like the whiteboard kind of style. Which of those are superior? And the answer is neither are superior. The answer is whichever one people like better is superior, right? So whatever real people like better, Google will like better. And I got to tell you, that sounds like a cop-out, but this... It is so much better, folks. I mean, trust me, to not have to sit in a room and think, well, what's Google going to like? Take that out of your mind and just like make the best stuff possible, and Google will reward you eventually.
That's it. That's it. As long as you're technical and UX are.
Yeah, you've got to.
Yep. Great. So, and then when we say content, don't forget those local listings, right? That is content too. That gets people a lot of answers. So if you are a business that has brick and mortar locations or service industries, or apparently even if you're selling shoes, you're going to want to make sure that your local listings are optimized. Okay.
And even if you aren't a retail business, like you can still have a local listing for any kind of company. You don't have to have a storefront that with a cash register, and you might as well do that because it gives you another bite at the apple in those SERPs.
That's it. Yep. And then step 4, this is where it gets hard. This is where it gets really hard. We have to break down internal silos so remember, we're putting ourselves in our customer or our prospect's shoes. And we need to think about everywhere that they could interact with your brand on that SERP. So paid ads, shopping ads, organic, including those answer boxes or position 0, the shopping tab, which is a totally separate tab, images, which could be on the image tab, videos, the local pack. All of those things equal the total SERP coverage. So Jay and I know for sure that that is a paid Google ad, that's a shopping ad, that's an organic listing. And to a certain extent, the general public also knows what's an ad or not, but they don't care. Yeah. They don't care. We care because we have to pay for it if it's a paid ad. They don't care. So think about all the different places and think about where you have to be to meet your customer where they are on the SERP.
Will you go back one just for a sec? We got a question that asks in the ship graphic, we talked about listings and what are listings. These are listings. We probably use a couple of terms interchangeably. Sure. So when you have the local sort of store or location data points, right? And it's
Yeah.
always sort of bold: hours, address, located in, phone
Yep.
number. Those are local listings, typically associated with the map. Not always, but that's when we say listings, that's what we mean.
That is it, exactly. Jay, would you like to come work for us?
I've been down that road. I don't know if I could do it again.
Yep, great. Okay, so if we have to cover the entire SERP for our customers and our prospects, then how easy is it going to be able to do that if I have a separate paid search team, a separate SEO team, a separate local team, and then a separate analytics team?
Social team, content team, video team.
It makes it real hard, right? And I like to joke about this because remember when omnichannel was a buzzword back in the 2010s, 2012, 2013, omnichannel, which really means putting the customer at the middle of every decision that you make. Had brands actually done omnichannel for real 10 years ago, not a single one of them would be worried about SEO today. Because really what that does is it takes away the silos and focuses first on the customer, and all decisions are made from the customer out, rather than making decisions from the merchants and the creatives and the everybody, right? So this is why we have to make plans holistically for that customer, because again, they don't care if they click on a paid ad or an organic ad, they just want the answer, right? So think about how your organizations are set up for success in that manner. And then obviously measuring your impact. So unfortunately today, as we saw, measuring old SEO KPIs are going to give you the wrong insights. Because again, even if we do everything right and we increase your rankings, it doesn't mean that you're going to have the same contribution from SEO that you used to. And that's the scary part. That's where people are having trouble today.
Yep.
So you need to start a new way of thinking about this. This right here is a perfectly valid way, and a way that I wish more organizations would even just start doing. What's your SEM forecast? What's your SEO forecast? How are they doing in combination with one another?
And
right?
SEM is typically the paid ad side of it, just to.
Correct. Thank you for that. Yes. So paid versus organic. How well are you expecting those to perform for you? What level of contribution are they supposed to make to your bottom line? Okay, great. Track those individually, but more importantly, track them as a combination. Because again, the user doesn't care. And as SEO continues to get pushed lower and lower off the page and paid takes up more of that space, it might be that your SEM, your paid, is going to take up more of that burden, but in total, you'll still reach your metrics goal. Now, the fancy way, and the way that we're working on it here at DAC, is to think about kind of almost like a financial index, right? So take the factors that matter to your business. So Jay mentioned, like, if you might really need to rely on the maps pack depending on the type of business you are. So the things that might matter for you are driving directions. That might be your #1 KPI. Cool. Give that a higher weight than you would to people clicking through to your website, right? So think about, what are the metrics that matter to me as a brand? Which of those metrics will come out of which of the channels on the SERP? And then weight this as a composite. And as long as that composite weighted index is moving up and to the right, you're doing things correctly. Now that's harder to do. It involves a lot of different data points and discussions internally, but as long as it's moving up and to the right, you're doing it right. All right, another poll. We'll open this up. So of the 5 steps, which are listed here below in your poll, for how you're going to overhaul your SEO, which do you currently find the most difficult to execute in your business? And you can answer as many of these as you see fit. So let's open up that poll, please.
So we've got address all technical and UX shortcomings, learn what your audiences need with the data-led personas, build the content your audiences want, create holistic search strategies. So you're thinking about search, not paid versus organic, et cetera, and then measure the impact with the right metrics, which aren't as beholden to month over month or year over year or quarter over quarter metrics, but versus your own internal projections. Which of those 5, and multiple answers are available in this case, which of those 5 do you find hardest to execute in your business today? I suspect the answers will change somewhat based on sort of the maturity of search inside your organization, and also somewhat based on category, right? Because there are some of these tactics and techniques that are a little bit more difficult if you have a product assortment of 25,000 products versus your services business that doesn't have as many nuanced, detailed product listings, etc. But the reality is we can't assume that what has worked will continue to work, because it simply will not, and 2/3 of you have already experienced that.
Yep. I'm excited to see the answers to this.
It looks like we are going to show the answers. Here they are. All right. So 51% of the audience, so just over half of you, have the challenges with the tech and UX shortcomings. And sometimes that's because that's siloed in a different part of the organization, as a practical matter. Almost the same number have some questions about metrics and the data-led personas. And then a lesser group of attendees, 3 in 10 approximately, are challenged a little bit with the content side and the holistic search strategy. Well, that's really interesting.
That's very interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think, the technical and UX piece is really critical, and it's interesting that half of you are having struggles there. Although, on the flip side, when I think about it, it is harder and harder and harder to be really, really, really good at those things, right? Google wants the fastest experience, the best experience. So I can see how the number might be high there. But certainly, these are all things that can be tackled through, working with your internal teams, working with an agency like DAC. But these are all things that you need to think about to master the SERP in 2022. So interesting. Thank you all for answering that poll. I really find that very interesting on your results there. Cool. Okay. So just to round this out with a little bit of reminders of the content we've been through here, do not expect your SEO traffic to increase every year as it has always done in the past, right? The zero-click searches, the other
people are working on their budgeting for next year and they're making promises to their boss or whatever. Take a picture of the slide.
Yeah.
Because don't back yourself into a corner like, oh yeah, well, we got this many visits this year, so let's bump that up 10%. That makes sense. Like, you could be very disappointed next year.
Yep. So just look at your own data, see how it's trending, and make sure you're looking at that appropriately so you know what to expect. Additionally, the technical excellence, as we've said, that still matters deeply. Things like core web vitals, speed, UX, still matters very much so, but brands need to create and optimize literally everything that matters for their customer. So content for SEO is no longer just copy and HTML code. You have to think visually, interactively, ratings and reviews, think about the entire SERP, think about all the places that a customer or a prospect could get the information that they need from you. And in order to do that, it is time to break down silos, especially in measurement. So digital performance is the interplay of dozens of things right now. You have to look at this holistically. And even though it is still useful to look at individual channels so you understand how to optimize within those channels, we need to really start looking beyond that last click SEO performance metric as a success metric, and looking to see how it's driving the totality of our business in combination with other factors. So just to recap those 5 steps. First, get your ship in good working order. Start at the bottom with the technical and the UX and work up. Know your audiences deeply and remember that your own first-party data is an absolute gold mine. Use it, use a lot of it, use it all the time. Make the content people want for your business, for your audiences. Break down your internal silos to get that content and that plan put together into a cohesive manner, and then measure your impact appropriately. So that is the content that we have for you today. Thank you so much for attending. Jay, are there further questions?
Gohar had one about how critical is it to sync your organic and paid search strategy, and I think we would argue that it is incredibly important, and more so all the time. You really shouldn't have a paid strategy and an organic strategy. You should have a search strategy and a digital strategy. And Solar asks, should the copy on your local listing try to drive an action, or just provide information? What do you think about that, Jenna? There's not too much room to have a CTA or really incentivize an action.
Yeah, people they don't really need a call to action when they're engaging with your local listings. They need to see your hours, or if you're open right now and how busy you are. For example, if you're a restaurant, it'll show you that. They might need a specific question answered, like, do you sell X sub-product of this product? So, making sure that you have all of the fields filled out. There's a ton of info that goes into those that is possible to be put into those listings. As long as you have those fully optimized, there's no real CTA that's needed.
Yeah, make it as comprehensive as possible as long as it's factually accurate. I love this one from Holly. pros and cons on pruning your blog. So you might have big blog, you've got a bunch of posts that are maybe out of date. Should we kill those? Should we archive them? Should we redirect them? What's the best practice now?
You need to go find out if they're doing anything for you at all. A lot of
Yep.
times, so with the helpful content update, if it's too old and nobody ever looks at it, Google's already kicked it out of the index anyway.
Yeah.
It's living in position bajillion, or it's literally not even indexed anymore. Start there. Go see if those pages are indexed in your Search Console account. And then if they are of value to you, but you have other better pages that are similar, use your redirect strategy, use your canonicals. But yes, I would argue, short answer, less is more. Usually, because otherwise it's repetitive and it'll be less helpful. So think about the helpful content update and decide, is this helpful enough to keep its place? If yes, keep it. If no, get rid of it.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Don't be afraid to get rid of content that doesn't perform, because if nobody's looking at it, Google doesn't like it either, and it just kind of gets in the way. So it's okay. It's okay
Yeah, it
to
just
prune the
messes
tree.
up your infrastructure and gives you a huge bloated site that you can't really do anything with.
Shruti asks, how do we track effectiveness of search if we are not in an e-commerce business? What other metrics should we be looking at? Is it just traffic? Is it time on site? Is it repeat visits? What are some of the metrics you might advise?
So we always actually say that the metrics that matter most aren't the channel metrics, it's whatever you measure your business by, right?
Yep.
So if your business is measured by cost per lead or lead volume, that's how you should be measuring it by. Because yes, there are things that are specific to the channels and to the tactics, but at the end of the day, if it's not moving your business, then it's not working. So
Yeah, you're not in the business of generating website traffic,
nope,
typically. You're in the
nope,
business of that, hopefully generating some other kind of behavior that is actually monetizable.
that's it. Yep.
I had one that I realized about 75% of the way through this presentation, we really missed an opportunity, Jenna. We should have had a slide and maybe even t-shirts for our amazing attendees today that said, get your ship together. It just feels like it was right there for the taking. And I'm actually kind of sad that I thought of that in the session instead of before. Next time.
We blew it. All right.
So close to brilliant.
All right, well, just for all of you attendees, thank you so much. Thank you for your engagement and your questions. I hope this was insightful. Jay, always a fun time with you.
Thanks so
just
much.
know that you will be getting our white paper about this coming soon to your inbox for those of you that have joined us on the webinar today, and reach out with any further questions.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much.
You'll be able to ask more questions of DAC when you get the follow-up email.
All right, thank you.
Take care.